Welcome into a brand new edition of the 06010 ESPN Communications Podcast. I'm your host, Alex Feuz, and we are joined by the one and only Dan Wetzel, ESPN senior writer. Dan is one of the most respected voices in sports journalism. He's a senior writer and multimedia journalist for ESPN's Enterprise and Investigative unit. After arriving to Bristol after more than 2 decades as a national columnist at Yahoo Sports, over the years, Dan has broken major stories, covered everything from the Olympics to World Cups, and reported on some of the most high profile court cases in sports. He's a New York Times best-selling author, and his work has appeared in Best American Sports Writing, and he's also a U.S. Basketball Writer Hall of Famer, as well as produced and written major documentaries and films, a Massachusetts native, and a proud UMass grad. Dan, thanks so much for your time today. 8 months into ESPN, what are some of your key takeaways so far from your job?
Well, thanks for having me. Key takeaways from the job. I would say the amount of talent that you get to work with, just top line editors, coworkers, writers, producers, just everything. And then just the enormous opportunities that ESPN offers in terms of not just writing and reporting, but digital, podcasting, YouTube, social, and then obviously the linear and all that thing. Just there's so many opportunities as the media changes that ESPN is well positioned to exploit and to be a industry leader on. And so it's really about just the enormity of the whole company.
I mentioned in the intro, you came from Yahoo Sports. ESPN chairman Jimmy Pitaro was head of media at Yahoo as well and has said he knew what it was like competing against ESPN. So let me ask you, what was it like competing against ESPN while you were on the other side?
Yeah, I did work for Jimmy at Yahoo. It was great, terrific leader. Obviously, it was a lot of fun. Um, Competing against ESPN, yeah, you're always at a disadvantage. So you had to find different ways to defeat him, to beat him. We were obsessed with competing with ESPN, particularly, for a long time. We kind of lost that a little bit. But it was, how do you have to be more creative, resourceful, use what you do have, and try to work against ESPN, but it isn't easy. ESPN's got a lot of advantages, and those advantages were created by a lot of really talented people and a lot of great investment and decisions. So it was always a challenge, but that's it. You just had to be, you had to find a way, and that was all we could do.
Your boss, Chris Buckle, has said you are a 5-tool player. What do you think is your best tool in your toolkit?
uh yeah, hit for power. Is that what do we got? All those
You can say
5 tool. I think everything stems from reporting. So it's really, how do you report a story, identify a story. That was a big thing we always had to do at Yahoo to compete. What's the story? Find the story and then report the story. And as long as you can do that, then it's a matter of how are you presenting that, whether it's reporting breaking news or writing an opinion piece to bring context and clarity to the audience, or a longer feature that best explains or presents that information, or talking about it on a podcast or a video show or through social media. Some of the stuff at ESPN I've been doing is, everything from 45-second social media clips that they'll put on TikTok or Reels or social media or Instagram, to lengthy reporting, in a 4,000 word story, to podcasting, to columns, to all of it. So but it's really all stems from reporting. At the end of the day, I'm a reporter. Identify the story, get the facts, and figure out how to present it later. And I think if you have that tool, if that's one of the 5 tools, the other ones kind of fall into place after that.
How was your career change and evolve over time? You mentioned a lot of different things. Obviously, TikTok wasn't around and is new in the last few years. So, how has your role as a reporter shifted and evolved over the years?
Yeah, tremendously. In terms of the different mediums, I mean, I started, I had two early jobs, internships at newspapers in Indianapolis and in Chicago at Chicago Tribune. And those jobs were very, there's one deadline at the end of the day. So uh, trying to trying to write stories on a very limited space, fighting for space, and trying to tell the stories really quick, or fighting for that, to what we do now, where there's everything's pretty much immediate and infinite that you can do. So I think when you're talking about working in modern media, uh, you're talking about really trying to identify the best ways to tell the story. That's really it. How to use the different mediums for yourself. I also think we used to have a saying at Yahoo, like every 6 months the internet changes. And so if you're doing the job the same way you were 6 months ago, or thinking about the job, you're probably doing it wrong. Now, you might be doing 99% of it the same way, but you have to be on top of what that 1% is. Maybe it's 3% one shift, or this or that. What's coming along that is going to where you meet the audience where they are at, and how do you best do that? And so whatever comes along, again, you're still going to the core values of telling a story, getting information out, perspective out, but you have to constantly be changing. So everything's changed, and nothing's changed at the same time. But if you're not on top of it, or if you're sitting there saying, well, this is how we do things here, that's a risky proposition. You don't change your core, but you do change your distribution and all of those things. Yeah, just constantly on to new things.
You mentioned you started interning with a newspaper, so you've seen multiple eras in your career. What era do you think best shaped your career?
That's a great question. I think in terms of what I try to do, probably the early days at Yahoo, or where we really were building a brand and trying to be very, probably not the proper word, but entrepreneurial in our journalism, and trying to figure out how to matter. We were at a big company where that at the time was a search engine and wasn't a media company. So how do you make media matter at a media company, and how do you get um, people who are on your site understand that they're an audience for media? And I think that's kind of the challenge. You're trying to get people to come to your website or stay at your website, and they may not look at you or have been looking to consume media. And I think if you kind of get through that thought process, it probably was the most transformal moment. And then just constant work and doing a lot of that journalism, but looking it through that system. So that's kind of where probably be the most important one.
When you have ideas and you're trying to determine what story you want to do next, how do you decide what you want to write about?
Um, that can really vary. What's the audience interested in is probably number one. I mean, the audience is the boss, and what are they interested in? Now, you can tell them things they're not expecting, of course, but probably I'm more audience focused than anything else. Is this something they need to hear, want to hear, or how can I present something that they are expecting in a different manner, or in a the biggest thing, it's a attention economy, and so you're competing for people's attention, and they have almost unlimited options or an unlimited competition to get that attention. And it's not just right now, I'm going to sit down and consume media. Which media do I consume? It could be games. It could be it just could be anything that they're going with. So how do you get that audience, and how do you meet that audience? So I'm pretty audience focused.
I love that. Attention economies. That's a great line. Um, what do you
I spend way too much time thinking about this stuff. This is
Well, you have to, right?
I think so. It's a battle every day. You're everyone's a consumer, right? So You say, why am I going to read this article? Why am I? Everyone swipes through TikTok. Why stop? Why'd you stop? Why'd you stop for more than 2 seconds? Why did you just not flip? Could be anything. What won you over to watch that clip? Because you know there is an unlimited supply of clips right after it waiting to get you that might be better. How do you keep them on that? Why'd you watch this channel? Why'd you read this story? Why'd you listen to this podcast? Why'd you do anything? The competition is just unbelievable. Or you sit there and say, I'm not going to, I'm going to log off of this, or I'm not going to go on a website. I'm going to play Candy Crush, or I'm going to go for a walk, or I'm going to do something else. But it's you need to get their time. It's not the old days. There was limited options. You come home, you turn on the TV. I have kids, they never turn on the TV. So how do you meet them? How do you make a YouTube work? How are you bigger on that? What do you have? And so it is, you have to think about it all the time on every story, every day.
What skills do young journalists, in your opinion, most underestimate today?
Reporting. I think reporting. If you can tell people what's going on, you have a skill set that's important. So you need to be able to report. You can get away for a while with just commentary or just this or that or this gimmick or whatever. But at the end of the day, if you have that, you have something that skill set is very substantial. So a lot of people can. I just think being able to report is a key element. If you can do that, it's not necessarily essential, but it'll keep you from being something more than just a short-term influencer.
Dan, my last question for you before we get to the Fast Five. Your writing balances sharp analysis and humor and cultural commentary at times. When did you feel first confident in your own voice when you were writing a story?
Well, that's an everyday process too. But when I got to Yahoo, 20 years ago, I had to try to compete writing columns. And at the time you were competing often on big events, and you were going against the best sports columnists in, New York and DC and all over the country. So there's Mike Lupica, or there's Mike Wilbon, or there's Ian O'Connor, or there's whatever, Bob Ryan, all those types of guys. And you're trying to figure out a way to make your thing either stand up to theirs or be better than theirs or bring something different to the table. And there was enormous in terms of just writing columns and finding a voice back then with all the different newspapers and all the talent that were in a columnist role. You had to figure out a way to handle that. So I think eventually when you get comfortable with that, and many days you're getting you're not doing very well, but eventually you kind of get there that you feel somewhat confident in your voice. But again, it's usually an informed opinion is the best opinion. And that's what people are looking for, is expertise and authenticity. And so how do you get that? How do you stay true to your roots and that authenticity, but also how do you get informed on subjects really quickly and bring something where they're learning something from what you're presenting?
I'm sure reading is also a big part of your routine. Growing up, who did you read? Who were your reporters and journalists that you aspired to be and learn from growing up before you got into this industry, and then obviously still read to this day?
Well, I read, growing up in Boston, I read the Boston Herald and the Boston Globe, and a lot. And on the South Shore of Boston, the Patriot Ledger some. I didn't really gravitate to a single writer. I didn't think I would be in media when I was growing up. It wasn't something I was like expecting to do. So that would be it. I would just kind of consume the newspaper. I read the newspapers every day on the way to school and stuff like that, or that that was what would come in. So I wasn't necessarily trained on one writer or anybody that inspired me. I never really thought about it until I was later.
So you didn't think you were going to get into this career at that
I did
time?
not. No, I did. When I got to college, I joined the student paper and I started doing that. And, but no, I thought I'd get into like something else, real estate development or something like that. I wasn't really looking at being in media.
Well, Dan, this is my favorite part of any interview I do. It's a Feuz Fast Five. It's 5 quick questions. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it. I hope I'm ready.
Sources tell me you were a blackjack dealer at one point in time. What do you miss most about those days?
Well, I was a blackjack dealer. Yeah, I guess I was. My casino never opened, and then it's a little complicated. I don't want to sound like I was not a long-term blackjack dealer because my casino didn't open, but I did deal some blackjack at some parties and some events. But I was trained. I went to Greektown Casino College and all that. What do I miss about blackjack? The people, the other dealers and the customers or whatever. Craps too. Craps was a lot more complicated. Um, it could be fun. It could be a little bit of it's um it could be fun. If people are winning, everyone's excited. But for the most part, it's maybe just that each game made sense. I don't know. There was kind of a challenge to running the game and keeping the security of the game and paying it all out right. It was sort of there was a task that you kind of went through, a step by step task that I kind of enjoyed.
Was there a superstition that a player might have had that's, caught you off guard or surprised you?
So I didn't have the tons of experience on it. People would come up with all sorts of dumb stuff.
Sure.
What my experience was. I'm sure much more veteran dealers would have better stories than I do. I think what you learn is when you train, you play a lot of the games because you just play so someone else, like your classmate or whatever, is learning. Um, and you learn that there's no superstition, that you're going to lose. That would be about it. You can make very skilled bets. You could figure out very quickly who knew what they were doing. Let's put it that way, on how they bet. It's really not anything else. But when they understood the odds were slightly in their favor, better, or worse, and how they handled that. But I don't remember any particular like ridiculous theory. But people would, yeah, they blow on the dice or they, it's just it doesn't mean anything. You just
Sure.
kind of laugh.
You are a prolific author, producer, writer, among other talents. What's one project you haven't tackled yet, but you would love to?
I don't know. I've done documentaries. I've done, like I said, podcasts, lots of books. I don't know that there's a medium necessarily that I would do. It's again kind of how do you best present a story. Um, so like I said, it could be a 50-second social media post on Instagram. It could be a 3-part Netflix doc. Um, I think it's really more each medium is different, but it's not like I want to do one new thing. It's more it's just a little different. It's like cooking in a different pan. It's the same thing. So it's really more what are you cooking, not really the pan. I know it's kind of a weird way to look at it, but that's kind of how I see it. It's each thing has its unique challenge, but I don't think the mediums really matter.
Totally. You are a proud UMass grad, but what are they doing in football?
Yeah, I'm mostly proud. I mean, the football. They, I don't think UMass is proud of me. That's really more it. No, football. Yeah, I got a lot of heat because I was always against them trying to be a big time football team and said they'll never win. I think that was about 13 years ago. So far, I'm looking good. Never is a long time, but I'm standing strong for 13 years. They're trying to be something they aren't, but that's it. They have great ambition, not nearly enough resources or possibilities to make it work. There's certain things you can do and certain things you can't, and you got to recognize what you're good at and what you're not. UMass did not with the football.
What's the most chaotic travel story you've had on the job?
Boy, that's a good one. I was in a plane once when they forgot to shut the luggage door or something like that. We had to go back. That was a little dicey. Um,
Did anyone lose
I
any
went.
luggage?
I don't think we lost any luggage. It was more we were worried that the plane would start pulling apart and we'd all die. But no, I don't think anyone lost any luggage. And then when we landed, they took us all off for like an hour and then told us to get back on. They shut the door this time. Like you just kind of just sort of, that was kind of funny. Um, I went to the Sochi Olympics. That was great. Like I had a hotel room that didn't have a doorknob or a shower curtain. So
Oh,
Sochi Olympics were fantastic. I loved it. Rural Russia. Just great experience that you'd never experience any other way. But in terms of crazy travel, not being able to shut your door is, I mean, kind of, you get a hotel room, there's certain prerequisites, whether it's the cheapest hotel room or the nicest. And I figure a door is one of them. I think that's kind of a non-negotiable,
I would
but
agree.
not in Sochi, not in Sochi.
Wow. And then Dan, the last one for you. What's a conspiracy theory in sports that you absolutely don't believe but desperately want to?
What are some good conspiracies? I only think of the one where they fixed the draft for the Knicks to get Patrick Ewing. I don't believe that. What are some good ones?
I mean, we could sit here all day and probably come up with some. I'm sure every fan base has a conspiracy theory against their own team in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah,
Uh,
I would say that one's pretty good, or that they secretly benched Jordan for a year and a half. There's no way the NBA did that because of gambling. That didn't happen. I don't want to believe that one though. Yeah, it's usually, I tell people it's not a conspiracy, it's incompetence. That's I've investigated many conspiracy theories through the years. It's generally incompetence, not conspiracy. Conspiracy theories are a conspiracy is very difficult to pull off. They say if a conspiracy with three people only works if two of them are dead, and that's been my people talk. So there's no conspiracies.
I love it. Well, Dan, this was so much fun. Thanks so much for coming on. Keep up the great work that you're doing here at ESPN. And we're so lucky to have you as a teammate. So thanks so much for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you. Appreciate it. This is fun.